What backwards things have your schools done that made about 0 sense? We had a masquerade dance, but the masks couldn't conceal your identity. Hey, that happened to my prom senior year. It was a masquerade but masks and face paint were strictly forbidden. My junior high had 2 standard width staircases leading to the 2nd floor. The one closest to the door obviously got most of the traffic. So, to make the stair traffic more balanced, they designated 1 boys and 1 girls. I thought up and down would have been a better idea, seeing how you still had to wade through oncoming traffic of your own gender no matter which way you were going. Actual objective: prevent student upskirt viewing. My high school banned water bottles because some kids were throwing them around after lunch one day. Naturally, this meant guards on all the doors that would interrogate people with backpacks, which was freaking everybody because it was a freaking school, as they left the cafeteria. This endeavor did not reduce the stuff throwing. My middle school banned them after some kids brought vodka in them. Note, there were like 4 8th graders that did this, and this rule was put into place the next year, when the students had gone to high school. Not my school, but one of my colleagues has a kid in elementary school in which somebody was hit and injured with a soccer ball, so now they don't allow any balls whatsoever on the school premise. At the end of the 7th grade, my school allowed students in the advanced level reading classes to take Spanish in the 8th grade if they chose to. In addition, they were required to write letters saying why they wanted to learn Spanish in the 8th grade. Cue the beginning of the 8th grade. Everyone who didn't write the letter is enrolled in Spanish. No one who made a request to take Spanish is in Spanish. Since I was one of the kids who wrote a letter requesting to take Spanish, I also decided to ask around about what gives. Apparently, if you wrote a letter, you don't get to take Spanish until the next semester. So apparently, my school gave people who had not expressed any interest in being taught Spanish were given higher priority than those that went out of their way to make such a request. This was in 2004, but to this day, it remains the single most baffling moment in my public school education. My school banned backpacks. You should have carried everything in a guitar case instead. Due to a local measure, our high school got $10,000 to spend on renovating the campus. In the wording of the measure, the money could not be spent on teacher salaries or classroom materials like books or lab equipment. So, the school decided to build a chain link fence around the entire school. This was in addition to the other 2 fences already in place. There were also teachers on golf carts roaming the school for truants and someone on duty at all times to ensure that students entering the parking lot before the last period of the day had a valid excuse for leaving. We used to joke that they were just missing turrets with guards armed with rifles and video cameras on the various buildings to track our movements to complete our jail cell. For the girls at my school, your skirt or shorts had to be lower than your fingertips if you put your hands at your side, and you could not show midriff, unless you wore your school-sponsored cheerleader outfit which had almost no skirt and showed belly button. This rule was heck to anyone with long arms. My high school was briefly famous in the early zeros for having a girl that started a Caucasian pride club. Not sure how that ended though. At our high school, it was slightly different. There was an Asian club filled with like 200 kids, but all the officers, president, VP, etc. were white as some sort of joke. They were elected and no one gave a crap, I guess. I'll chime in with a story with a more positive ending. During the summer one year, our district had gotten a new school superintendent who was determined to crack down on certain groups of students he saw as undesirable. The way they decided to go about it was to create a new dress code for the middle and high schools, specifying that students could only wear khaki pants, button-up or polo shirts with no logos, and nothing else. Their reasoning was that the undesirables would either refuse or be unable to change their dressing habits, and so they would be suspended and eventually expelled. The problem was, a lot of students didn't have the money to buy a whole new wardrobe, and the school district wasn't about to provide one for them. At the same time, the students themselves resented what they felt was an attempt to control them. So a two-pronged attack began. The parents began protesting at school board meetings and the students began refusing, en masse, to conform to the new dress code. After the first week, The school board doubled down, warning that starting the next week they would be issuing suspensions to everyone who violated, without exception, even if it meant suspending half the school. So the next Monday, we came to school. 20 minutes after the first bell rang, we stood up and left. The entire school went outside to the parking lot and sat down. Sure, for some of the students this was just a nice excuse to walk out, but many of us were taking a stand. This rule was ridiculous, and we wouldn't obey it. The next day, we did it again. Halfway through the third day, they announced that they would no longer enforce the dress code. I have never been more proud of my local student body than I was that day. I almost had one of those happy teary moments. Upvote for you, good sir. My school brought in a guy who told us watching P would eventually make us impotent blind. Anything that has the word zero tolerance. Yes, I have zero tolerance for zero tolerance policies. Whenever there was a fight at my high school they would suspend both students no matter what. The problem with that is sometimes one of them would only be fighting back out of self-defense. There was a butthole in my grade who basically jumped this other kid because he thought he'd bumped into him on purpose, when it was just a case of too many people in too small of a space. The kid who was getting jumped wrestled him to the ground and pinned him. Butthole wasn't expecting this geeky kid to actually be pretty built, which caused Butthole's buddies to jump in and start hitting the kid. This all happened right in front of some friends and me at my locker. We tried to stick up for him because he'd done nothing wrong, only tried to defend himself. Didn't matter, he was suspended for a week. A lot of schools do this and it's absolutely ridiculous. If something like that ever happened with my daughter, I'd raise heck then take her to Disneyland or something during her suspension. This was some years ago, but at my high school a group of guys were wearing Hooters shirts that had the logo and the phrase "more than a mouthful." Some girls found this offensive but were told nothing could be done about it. So they made their own shirts with a picture of a rooster aka dong that said nothing to crow about. They were suspended. Both my friends were wearing hats in a school that didn't allow hats. The only difference between the two was that one of them was wearing his football jersey. The principal made the non-football friend take it off, while wishing the guy wearing the jersey good luck at the game scheduled for later that evening. At my old school we tried to game the system by setting up a WoW role-playing club to gain creativity hours. We got told we had to shut it down because WoW was addictive. The poker club was not a problem, however. A friend of mine was suspended for wearing a shirt from her previous school that she transferred from. It was ridiculous. A lesbian couple won cutest couple at my high school. The principal discontinued superlatives without explanation. Pretty soon, it won't matter what old blowhards like him think in their bigoted worldview. Anyways. Some kid at my high school got caught dealing pot from the basement bathroom. Therefore, they shut down the basement bathroom. In my school we are only allowed to wear Halloween costumes until lunch. After that they have to be taken off in fear of concealed weapons. I forgot people only get murdered after lunch. Don't be the kid who murders someone in first period and ruins it for everyone next year. In my high school on Halloween we were allowed to dress up. Even though it was a Christian school, we were allowed to dress up. A male student dressed up as the Joker in his nurse outfit very convincingly. It was great. By third period he was forced to change out of his costume for cross-dressing. Many of the popular boys on the football team were dressed in actual drag or as a caveman Roman in a dress but were never forced to change. It always pissed me off, because this kid never dressed up or participated in school functions, and the first time he does his brilliant costume was harassed by the teachers and shamed for being twisted. Call the ACLU. They foam at the mouth for stuff like this. And contact the media. I once got punished by my school for not wearing bunny ears during the Easter egg hunt. I am Jewish. The most backwards thing that made zero sense to me was the way my school handled 9/11. I was a senior in high school at the time. When the first attack happened, word got around about a bad plane crash, so many of the teachers put on the classroom TVs. As such, many of the students saw the second plane crash live. Obviously, everyone knew it was intentional at that point. Within 15 minutes, the principal got on the PA system and announced that we all needed to get back to learning and not worry about what was going on outside of school. So here we are, Students aged 13-18, more than capable of understanding what was going on, being told to just ignore the largest attack on this country in our lives. The cable feed was cut to the entire school, so we were in the dark. For the rest of the day, we had no idea what was happening. For all I knew, there could have been similar attacks all over the country. Yet our moronic principal thought that by cutting us off from the world we would just have a normal school day and learn. I will be forever angry at him for that. I think it was a horrible decision and we had every right to know what was going on. You should send him a letter. Let him know you're still thinking about how horribly he handled the entire situation. Day of silence. When I was in high school we had a diversity club, because my school wouldn't allow XR, and a good 100+ people were participating. 2 of the administrators didn't want day of silence to be a thing. The other 2 let us and offered to field any angry phone calls from parents. There were parents who kept their kids home from high school on the day of silence because they thought it was blasphemous that our public school was supporting sin. There were 86 calls from angry parents that our school would condone gay marriage and that jazz. Our school was 1,500 people, so it was pretty small percent, but far more than there should have been. That afternoon, our associate principal, one of the ones who approved of day of silence and calmed irate parents, was killed in a pretty horrific car crash. People blamed it on, yep, God punishing her for accepting the LGBT community. Freaking buttholes. I have only been that full of rage maybe twice in my life. On another note, the Bible Club protested our diversity club meetings, even when we were talking about like, treatment of Native Americans in the modern day. I don't get it. If this happened to me, I'd just refuse the punishment and tell them to leave it alone or expel me and watch me destroy them in court. Realized once I finished typing that this may have something to do with me being in law school now. If you get expelled you can actually petition the county school board to change the sentencing among other things. It's scary how much it's like court. Source: I got expelled once and got my expulsion shortened. My best friend in high school got pregnant and the school persuaded her to drop out. Apparently it looks bad on the school and they try to convince all pregnant students to do it. Fast forward years later, I'm teaching a pregnancy STD prevention program and try to get the school as a contract, but get turned down because I have never had a pregnant student. I didn't go to this school but I have many friends who did. A few years ago one of the students of the nearby Catholic high school committed suicide and they refused to put anything about him in the yearbook because suicide is a mortal sin and he was in heck. I don't know if this is how most Catholic high schools handle this sort of thing, but everyone thought it was really fricked up. I had a friend's brother commit suicide 1 year after graduating from a Catholic high school. The service was held at the school and was supported by the administration. This was in California, however, so in my high school we could not wear blue jeans. You can wear black, red, green, purple, or any other color, but no blue jeans. We had a National Pride Day for Spirit Week, but the teachers banned wearing countries' flags. When it comes to schools, it's only a political issue if it's a minority opinion in your community. Sad but true. 212-549-2500. That's the ACLU main office in NYC. I bet your principal would crap his or her pants if you had them call the school for a pep talk. Wear your shirts anyway. Frick that. 216-472-2200. ACLU of Ohio, since OP said they were in that state. It made national headlines a few years back. I graduated in 2006. This happened 2009. Live Oak High School in Morgan Hill, CA. A white student wore an American flag eagle t-shirt to school on Cinco de Mayo. The student was suspended for, and this is a quote, insulting Mexican Americans with inappropriate clothing. The student went to his parents who promptly went to the press, and once the local Hispanic community caught wind, there was a protest against the school not expelling this bad kid for insulting their heritage by wearing an American flag on Cinco de Mayo. In the US, in a school where the overwhelming majority of the Mexican heritage students were born in the US and are therefore Mexican American. Backwards thinking at its finest. Thankfully the protests amounted to nothing once the story went viral nationwide, and the principal assistant principal responsible for the decision were fired. My public high school did something very similar. We started an LGBT club and were told that if we wanted trips, shirts, or meetings it would all have to come out of our own pocket. We were told that the school didn't have the funds to help us, but as long as we stuck to the school board rules we would be allowed to host our meetings. Meanwhile, the Christian Students Club got free t-shirts, sweaters and bags, a free trip out of the country to do missionary style work, and didn't have to pay a cent out of pocket for their meeting room rentals. It also states explicitly in our school board dress code that any clothing bearing religious symbols of any kind are not to be worn on school property. But when any of us in the LGBT club complained, we were hushed and forced out of the office. At this same high school I was bullied more by teachers than other students, assaulted by a teacher in my final year, which the school did nothing about, and once told that my friend who was being threatened by her ex-boyfriend was sold because it wasn't a school-related issue. They were so pissed when I took her to the police station to file a report that they almost suspended me. I managed to get out of it by turning to the same secretary who wouldn't help us and saying I thought it wasn't a school-related issue. At my gay little sister's public high school, they first tried to make a student change and then gave her a few days detention for politely asking why a legalized gay shirt was against their dress code. The dress code prohibits offensive profane content but nothing political. This is the same again. Public school that holds prayer sessions at official school events, school board meetings. America. Both actions are illegal. FFRF or the ACLU should be contacted. They will investigate, and if they find it to be illegal or unconstitutional, they will warn the school that they need to stop, and will litigate if the school refuses. My high school banned hugging because they thought it would stop teen pregnancies. Also, my senior year they banned Day of Silence. They let it happen my freshman-junior year of school, but banned it my last year, saying that if anyone was participating they would get in school suspension for 2 days. Most of the teachers didn't care and let the students stay silent throughout the day. My school had a Christian club you could get out of class for. Yet one of my friends was caught reading a spell book and his mother was called so she could burn it. Talk about religious freedom. One may be pro-life and anti-gay marriage, but there is no way one could argue that this isn't a conflict of interests and infringing on student rights. Why can't you advertise a political message in school? Is free speech not a thing? Assuming US. God, I hate schools. They seem to live outside the law. Courts have given schools wide authority to restrict speech. Students are not considered full adults with full rights. They also have limited privacy rights in schools, for example. When I was in middle school, 7th, 8th grade, our Bible Belt school system let kids wear WWJD shirts, but would suspend kids for wearing Marilyn Manson shirts. They said it was cult activity. This was a public school system. The same school suspended me for tracing the veins in my arms with a Bic pen. Principal concluded I was mapping out the best spots to shoot H. I was freaking 12. You should have responded by saying you were not mapping out the best spots to shoot H, but you were examining the best vein to slice open so the demons could get out more quickly. Public school in a wealthy, mostly white, conservative area. We had a young Republicans club for years. When a young Democrats club tried to form, the principal refused to allow it. What if they come to a dance naked? He eventually changed his tune after the superintendent told him what was up. But it was still significantly difficult for the young Dems to find faculty sponsors, hold meetings and events, and basically function. Meanwhile, many conservative and Christian groups had no problems. Another time, there was a party many schoolmates attended. There was drinking. The paramedics were called when a student with diabetes became unconscious. Thighs who attended the party were called in to rat out others and face punishments in school. What in the actual frick? Punishing children in school for something that has absolutely nothing to do with school seems to be a common thing to do everywhere. It's absolutely mind-boggling. In Canada, it's the opposite situation, where pro-life clubs are banned, don't get funding. Regardless, violations on freedom of speech shouldn't be tolerated, but sometimes it does cut it closer to what's slander and what isn't. At my high school in El Paso, TX. Everyone was allowed to wear red tape over their mouths on pro-life Day of Silence, but on Gay Rights Day of Silence, anyone wearing tape or refusing to speak was suspended for 3 days. Joke's on them. That's 4 whole days of them not speaking at school. Those dumb. The exact opposite happened at my high school. They actively encouraged the pro-gay students to participate in the Day of Silence. So one student wore a shirt that said "Be happy, not gay," and was forced to either remove the shirt or be sent home. They ended up suing the school and winning. Look up Nuxle v. Indian Prairie School District. Imagine if that said "Be American, not African American." Pretty much as your story OP, all the Christian groups as above. We petitioned for 2 years straight to get LGBTQA. Our principal kept denying it every time. We had the sponsors, a statement, dues pending, and a note from the school board members who suggested it was a great idea. So we keep trying and trying and trying. It was really heartbreaking because we tried so dang hard to start it up. In the end we decided to do community meeting once a month at a community center. Also found out the very same principal who denied it was a lesbian. School had a Christian club on campus, with a teacher, supervisor and everything. Yet we weren't allowed to have a secular student discussion club even though we found a faculty supervisor, and that supervisor got in big trouble for being involved. The Christian club would advertise in the e-books, wear club material, and were allowed to be at the club fairs and sell stuff at market day. We weren't even allowed to put up flyers or even officially exist as a club or group. When I was in high school we expelled a straight A student under our zero tolerance weapon rules. He was expelled because he left his tool belt in his truck which contained a hammer. He worked construction. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.